Welcome back to Storytime with Andy. We're reading The One Thing by Gary Keller. This is Chapter 12, The Path to Great Answers. Quote, "People do not decide their futures, they decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures." Unquote. F.M. Alexander. The focusing question helps you identify your one thing in any situation. It will clarify what you want in the big areas of your life and then drill down to what you must do to get them. It's really a simple process. You ask a great question and you seek out a great answer. As simple as 2 steps. It's the ultimate success habit. 1. Ask a great question. The focusing question helps you ask a great question. Great questions, like great goals, are big and specific. They push you, stretch you, and aim you at big, specific answers. And because they're framed to be measurable, there's no wiggle room about what the results will look like. Look at the Great Question Matrix, Figure 18, to see the power of the focusing question. Let's take increasing sales as a way to break down each of the quadrants using "What can I do to double sales in 6 months?" as a placeholder for big and specific, Figure 19. Of course, you'll have to purchase the book to see those, but I'll do a quick flash here. Not selling anything or trying to make money off of this, that's for sure. Just trying to share knowledge. Let's see. Now, let's examine the pros and cons of each basic quadrant, ending with where you want to be, big and specific. Quadrant 4, small and specific. What can I do to increase sales by 5% this year? This aims you in a specific direction, but there's nothing truly challenging about this question. For most salespeople, a 5% bump in sales could just as easily happen because the market shifted in our favor, rather than anything you might have actually done. At best, it's an incremental gain, not a life-changing leap forward. Low goals don't require extraordinary actions, so they rarely lead to extraordinary results. Quadrant 3, small and broad. What can I do to increase sales? This is not really an achievement question at all. It's more of a brainstorming question. It's great for listing your options, but requires more to narrow your options and go small. How much will sales increase? By what date? Unfortunately, this is the kind of average question most people ask and then wonder why their answers didn't deliver extraordinary results. Quadrant 2, big and broad. What can I do to double sales? Here you have to ask a big question but nothing specific. It's a good start, but the lack of specifics leaves more questions than answers. Doubling sales in the next 20 years is very different from attempting the same goal in a year or less. There are still too many options, and without specifics, you won't know where to start. Quadrant 1, big and specific. What can I do to double sales in the next 6 months? Now you have all the elements of a great question. It's a big goal and it's specific. You're doubling sales, and that's not easy. You also have a time frame of 6 months, which will be a challenge. You'll need a big answer. You'll have to stretch what you believe is possible and look outside the standard toolbox of solutions. See the difference? When you ask a great question, you're in essence pursuing a great goal. And whenever you do this, you'll see the same pattern, big and specific. A big, specific question leads to a big, specific answer, which is absolutely necessary for achieving a big goal. So if what can I do to double sales in 6 months is a great question, how do you make it more powerful? Convert it to the focusing question. What's the one thing I can do to double sales in 6 months such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Turning it into the focusing question goes to the heart of success by forcing you to identify what absolutely matters and start there. Why? Because that's where big success starts too. Number 2, find a great answer. The challenge of asking a great question is that once you've asked it, you're now faced with finding a great answer. Answers come in 3 categories: doable, stretch, and possibility. The easiest answer you can seek is the one that's already within reach of your knowledge, skills, and experience. With this type of solution, you probably already know how to do it and won't have to change much to get it. Think of this as doable and the most likely to be achieved. The next level up is a stretch answer. While this is still within your reach, it can be at the farthest end of your range. You'll most likely have to do some research, study what others have done to come up with the answer. Doing it can be iffy since you might have to extend yourself to the very limits of your current abilities. Think of this as potentially achievable and probable depending on your effort. High achievers understand these first two routes but reject them. Unwilling to settle for ordinary when extraordinary is possible, they've asked a great question and want the very best answer. Good point. So reject what's easy. Extraordinary results require a great answer. Highly successful people choose to live at the outer limits of achievement. They not only dream of, but deeply crave what is beyond their natural grasp. They know this type of answer is the hardest to come by, but also know that just by extending themselves to find it, they expand and enrich their life for the better. If you want the most from your answer, you must realize that it lives outside your comfort zone. This is a rare error. A big answer is never in plain view, nor is the path to finding one laid out for you. A possibility answer exists beyond what is already known and being done. As with a stretch goal, you can start out by doing research and studying the lives of other high achievers. But you can't stop there. In fact, your search has just begun. Whatever you learn, you'll use it and to do what only the greatest achievers do, benchmark and trend. A great answer is essentially a new answer. It is a leap across all current answers to search for the next one and is found in two steps. The first is the same as when you stretch. You uncover the best research and study the highest achievers. Anytime you don't know the answer, your answer is to go find your answer. In other words, by default, your first one thing is to search for clues and role models to point you in the right direction. The first thing to do is ask, has anyone else studied or accomplished this or something like it? The answer is almost always yes. So your investigation begins by finding out what others have learned. One of the reasons I've amassed a large library of books over the years is because books are a great go-to resource. Short of having a conversation with someone who has accomplished what you hope to achieve, in my experience, books and published works offer the most in terms of documented research and role models for success. The internet has quickly become an invaluable tool as well. Whether offline or online, you're trying to find people who have already gone down the road you're traveling. So you can research, model, benchmark, and trend their experience. A college professor once told me, Gary, you're smart, but people have lived before you. You're not the first person to dream big, so you'd be wise to study what others have learned first, and then build your actions on the back of their lessons. He was so right, and he was talking to you, too. The research and experience of others is the best place to start when looking for your answer. The research and experience of others is the best place to start when you're looking for your answer. Armed with this knowledge, you can establish a benchmark, the current high water mark for all that is known and being done. With a stretch approach, this was your maximum, but now it is your minimum. It's not all you'll do, but it becomes the hilltop where you'll stand to see if you can spot what's coming next. This is called trending, and it's the second step. You're looking for the next thing you can do in the same direction that the best performers are heading, or, if necessary, in an entirely new direction. This is how big problems are solved and big challenges are overcome. For the best answers rarely come from an ordinary process. Whether it's figuring out how to leapfrog the competition, finding a cure for a disease, or coming up with an action step for a personal goal, benchmarking and trending is your best option. Because your answer will be original, you'll probably have to reinvent yourself in some way to implement it. A new answer usually requires new behavior. A new answer usually requires new behavior. So don't be surprised if along the way to sizable success, you change in the process. But don't let that stop you. This is where the magic happens and possibilities are unlimited. As challenging as it can be, trailblazing up the path of possibilities is always worth it. For when we maximize our reach, we maximize our life. Big ideas summary for this chapter. Number 1, think big and specific. Setting a goal you intend to achieve is like asking a question. It's a simple step from I'd like to do that to how do I achieve that? The best question, and by default the best goal, is the big and specific. Big because you're after extraordinary results. Specific to give you something to aim at and to leave no wiggle room about whether you hit the mark or not. A big and specific question, especially in the form of the focusing question, helps you zero in on the best possible answer. Number 2, think possibilities. Setting a doable goal is almost like creating a task to check off your list. A stretch goal is more challenging. It aims you at the edge of your current abilities. You have to stretch to reach it. The best goal explores what's possible. When you see people and businesses that have undergone transformations, this is where they live. Number 3, benchmark and trend for the best answer. No one has a crystal ball, but with practice, you can become surprisingly good at anticipating where things are heading. The people and businesses who get there first often enjoy the lion's share of the rewards with few, if any, competitors. Benchmark and trend to find the extraordinary answer you need for extraordinary results. That's the end of this chapter and of this section, section 2. Let me see what it says here. Part 2, the truth, the simple path to productivity. That was only 3 chapters, 10, 11, and 12. And then we're off to part 3, which is extraordinary results, unlocking the possibilities within you. Okay, what did we learn today? Wow, chapter 12 was packed with a lot of good, practical, pragmatic advice. And I believe that we can all learn something from that. So if you grab the book, it's going to have all the diagrams and the categories in it. So leave a comment. Tell me what you learned from this particular chapter. And if there's another book that you would like us to read, leave that in the comments as well. Put a like on this video, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next chapter. Thanks.